quando vieni il bel sole. On days like these, when skies are blue and fields are green, I look around and think about what might have been, and then I hear sweet music all day.
Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
What was that? Testing.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Can you guys hear me? No.
No. Are you number 3?
Okay, this one doesn't work.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a complication. You see, we have as our main guest a member of the philosophy club, so that's why.
Hello. Testing.
Testing.
That one work?
Sorry about that. Apparently, we do having some technical complications. My friend just hasn't forgotten that the 3 is at the very end of the thing, even though he hosts his own radio show. This is the Anthropology Club. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear
Finally,
you now.
right? Okay.
Yes. Welcome to the Anthropology Show. Today's guest is Orlando Silva.
Oh, am I the guest? I
Yes.
thought I was like the barnacle at the bottom of a ship. You know, obviously a sinking ship from what I hear, but
Yes, we invited you because we're desperate. Yes, so he is the president of the Philosophy Club. And, well, introduce yourself, Mr. President.
well, actually, I'm more like a dictator. I basically, everything is under my control. I just let them say, "Hey, yeah, you could do that. Secretly, it's all mine. But no, I'm Orlando. I'm the president of the Philosophy Club. I am currently second-year student, mechanical engineering major, and yeah, that's about it. Nothing really special about me.
All right, welcome to have you aboard. As always, well, kind of skip introductions, but I am your Vice President of Anthropology, Jack Ramirez, and with me we have the lovely President of Anthropology.
Hello.
Hello, Ezerland. So, given how we have somewhat of a special circumstances of having the mixings of anthropology and philosophy, how about for today's subject, we try to understand what makes philosophy and anthropology similar but different.
Sounds good to me.
So, Mr. Silvia or Silver, why don't we start by explaining what philosophy is in a Mansi way?
In a Manzi way. Okay, well, I wish Manzi was here. Well, philosophy in general is kind of really just the study of life, the real big question is, well, how does one live their life? It's kind of based on this idea of, well, what do I know? What do I understand about my surroundings, about my existence? What is it that is actually real? And based off all these things that I understand to be real, this is how I choose to live my life. That's basically the idea of philosophy. It's just the study of human life and how to live it.
Yeah, because it's very interesting because anthropology, when you define it into its simplest form, it basically means the science of us, what makes us and how we interact with our environments and how that has affected throughout history. Now, personally, I would say that on the surface, both philosophy and anthropology look similar.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think makes each field unique? What thing differentiates them?
Well, I think the real differentiation is basically that anthropology is more based in science, and philosophy is more based in, I guess you could say, thought, and not necessarily thought, but more, I guess, moral thought or ethical thought. Because with anthropology, what you're doing is you're looking into research. You're going and you're looking into excavating, doing looking up fossils, looking at rocks, and basically studying your surroundings to say, okay, well, this is how human civilizations used to live, and this is what they used to do, and you're basically studying them in a very scientific way. With philosophy, it's more like, oh, look at me, I'm studying myself, and I'm studying others, and oh, I think this is bad, and I think this is good, and it's basically that's kind of the big difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess we can do. I mean, we have carbon dating, and you guys have like some book that was written probably in the 1800s.
Exactly.
Yeah, but even still, also when considering the differences, I mean, it's amazing how each field influences the other one. I mean, without philosophy, there wouldn't be bigger explanations to many of the anthropology fields. Saying when we're trying to understand a society, we also need the philosophy to understand what was going through the mind of that time period.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think and a good way to put it is that philosophy is kind of the earliest science. And I'll say that because a lot of scientific thoughts and like that school of thought in general kind of comes from like different things like the Socratic method and the ideas of, okay, well, this is not what this is. And then that kind of led into the scientific method, And so that's kind of the basis of, okay, well, philosophy, you kind of were just looking around and you couldn't really understand everything to the most depth. So you were kind of just trying to figure it out at the base logic level. And that's kind of what I kind of see there.
Yeah. So, Madam President, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I've been a part of the philosophy club for 3 semesters now.
Traitor.
It's okay. I've been a part of the anthropology for 5 semesters.
Dang.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, honestly, they are very, very similar. I kind of like how our old advisor, Tim Sullivan, he used to quote someone, and I forgot who he quoted, but it was that anthropology is the most scientific of the humanities and the most humanistic of the sciences. And that just really kind of stuck out to me because it seems so true. And when you compare a humanistic kind of science with philosophy, which is more humanistic than it is science, it's like you can see the very slight differences, but it's very much there.
Yeah. And another thing too is that anthropology has a big place in philosophy. It's kind of its own philosophy in and of itself. It's kind of referred to as the naturalistic view of the world, where certain people believe in metaphysics and in philosophy, and other people will take the anthropological view and say, okay, well, based off this civilization, based off that civilization, and the comparison in their morals, we kind of realize that, well, maybe this isn't true and this is true. So I think that's also very interesting. In terms of anthropology, I think it's important because we're also looking at. I feel like we all have these what's the word I'm looking for?
Precognitions.
Preconceptions?
Yeah, preconceptions about what a human is, and like, oh, well, humans are naturally evil or humans are naturally this. But I feel like that disregards anthropology. When you start to study their culture and start to see their morals, you kind of realize, wow, well, is this really evil? Am I really understanding good in the same way? I think that comes in a big part from anthropology.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I mean, when you see both fields, I mean, I guess one of the big questions you could say, just like the chicken, what came first, the egg or the chicken,
Mm-hmm.
I think we could apply the same concept to these two fields, which one came first. I mean, was it the field of anthropology that let rise to philosophy, or was it vice versa?
I think it's vice versa because I think philosophy is super vague because philosophy can literally be the philosophy of anything. Like there can be a philosophy of business, a philosophy of science. It's just the idea of that you're putting things in a logical term, and that's kind of the whole idea. Like I think it kind of gave birth to science in general, and so obviously anthropology is within science.
I mean, yeah, that is true. I mean, at the beginning, early humanity was in like scientific base. It was mostly religious and oral communication based. So I see the more they're trying to understand how the world works around us. That could lead to more. Hey, if if we try to see the patterns, can such patterns be measured and not just measured, but what causes things? So I guess you could be right. I think philosophy did come first before anthropology.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think if you look a lot of at a lot of the early philosophy, it's pretty interesting how people broke things down. There's I forgot what it's called, but it's termed as pre-Socratic philosophy, and there was a certain philosopher who actually thought of the idea of atomic particles before like science even like was really even prominent, and he was basically coming up with the idea, well, what's the most basic component of life, and not in terms of humanity, but rather of everything, is this idea of an essence. And so we already had humans who were thinking about like scientific theories and scientific models before scientific observation even existed. And so that kind of the whole idea of like science, it kind of is just birthed from philosophy, because if you look at what science is, it's just logic, it's just deduction. It's just like, okay, well, we see that doesn't work like that, and so they must work like this.
Yeah, it's basically logic establishing a pattern, which pattern later becomes a rule, and if there is nothing that disputes or debunks that rule, then that's when it becomes a law.
Exactly. Oh, it becomes a theory. A law is just an observation that to explain natural phenomena.
Oh, true.
Yeah. Chemistry, y'all. Esther, you should know about that.
It's actually not an explanation at all.
Oh, okay. It's an observation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's something used to predict other events that will happen, such as gravity. All things that fall.
Yes, because in
Are pulled
chemistry we
towards
study gravity.
No, but whatever.
Here's the question for you. What is gravity?
Well, are we going to define it as 9.8 meters per second square, or
That's the force constant
Isn't
of
it
gravity.
the attraction between two bodies of
Mass.
mass?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, in other words, the fatter you are, the more attractive you are. That's why Garfield is America's #1 favorite cat.
That's not the way you do it. You got to use it like a pickup line. Be like, hey, girl, there's an attraction between you and me.
You
Okay.
did not just say that.
Hey, guys, don't be silent,
If you wanna-
Everything said in this is the explicit view of Orlando and Jack, and that's it.
Hey, Jack, what'd you say about the Nazis?
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we broke a new record to see how far we can. For Ezra to say the disclaimer, but seeing how this is a very professional show, we won't push that. If you want to hear more about that, then you should head to the philosophy radio show. It should be on Thursdays around 3. But remember, this is a professional business.
This message has been approved by Jack. Oh, jeez. Okay. Back to the topic at hand here. Philosophy, anthropology.
Yes.
Okay.
The Cold War of social sciences.
Yes.
It's actually really a shame that we actually couldn't been able to bring someone from the psychology club.
Oh yeah, we should have invited her. I think she would have came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ezra's just giving me the look that says, "Yo, no, don't do that. I can't handle all that responsibility." If you're listening to this psychology,
Psych Ducks.
Yeah.
Serena, president of psychology.
if you're listening to this thing, you are welcome to appear on their show.
One guest at a time.
All right, I'll try to convince Esther to bring more than one. But I mean, yeah, it could have been interesting to see, because psychology also plays an important role to philosophy and anthropology.
Mhm.
That's true. That's true.
So here's the thing: is anthropology something that you guys feel is really being paid attention to, or being given as much as importance as it should be? In my opinion, like, what do you guys think about that?
Well, for the program here, Richland itself, I'm afraid I have to plead ignorance. I'll have to talk to our coordinator, Susan Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Peacock, sorry. Mary, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. It's a
Oh,
long
jeez.
day.
How harsh.
Um,
Vice president, right?
yes. Yes, I am 3309960 if you want to look me up.
Okay.
That's my ID number, not my phone number.
What is it? Jack.Raber on Instagram. Check him out. I think.
Isn't that also his email? At gmail.com?
Oh wait, let me go ahead and pull out his phone number too.
Yes, I'll also tell you my social security number, my bank account statements, everything. But remember,
It's all right, Jack. Maybe somebody will make something out of your life.
Oh dang.
at least not
was
Esther.
harsh. Esther.
I'm kidding.
Well, Orlando, at
That
least
was
I'm not
for me.
Esther loves you dot land.
Oh my gosh.
But I do.
I can't even lie. That fits your personality. You're like so nice. It's not even funny.
Sure about that, buddy?
Well, actually, it is funny. It is funny.
Yes.
Okay.
According to our president's words, anthropology is also a vampire club.
Vampire Club. yeah.
Absolutely.
Study of vampires.
Mm,
You said?
more like the congregation. of
Well,
vampires.
Wait, so I have a
Technically-
question for you. How did Edward shine in the sun? That doesn't make any sense.
Are you talking of our
Say what?
beloved?
Talking about Twilight right now.
Oh. Are you talking about our SJ President Edward Cisse?
You haven't seen Twilight? Oh.
I haven't seen Twilight.
Okay.
No.
Oh.
Scratch that. Neither have I.
Okay, no, I'm afraid I haven't seen that episode. You see,
You know what I'm worried about? The guy who liked the girl Bella.
Oh
He then liked
my
her
gosh.
daughter.
You just right now said you didn't watch it. And now you're talking
I
about
didn't.
it.
I read an article about
Oh,
it.
read an article. I read on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough
okay,
of that.
back up.
That
This
was
is
a
a
CGI
hand.
meme.
Remember, we're professionals here, people. We're
Are we?
professionals.
Is I see the kind of show you guys run here.
Yes. Yes, just a disclaimer, as I said in the first episode, we're not trying to copycat philosophy yet.
Yet.
All right. Well, are you guys gonna come tomorrow? By the way,
I will stop by.
Esther, I know you can come.
Um,
Don't play games.
Maybe.
We have the same class. You're gonna be like, I'm busy that day. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I'll,
Mm.
I'll check my
Sure.
schedule.
It's a
Okay.
maybe. Take it or leave it.
No. She's coming tomorrow. Don't worry. Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh, right. I
Thanks.
wanted to say something about anthropology and philosophy. Oh, no. Just anthropology.
Oh,
Sorry.
thanks.
No, but a lot of the times people who don't particularly like science will think of anthropology and be like, oh, it's another science. It
Mhm.
has ology in it. I don't want to go to that, you know? And then the people who like actually do like science, they're like, anthropology? Really? That's not a science. So like it gets the worst of both worlds. And it's really terrible. But anthropology is actually really fun.
Yeah, especially when you're wearing a leather jacket, a sombrero, and you have a whip.
What?
What?
Indiana Jones. Huh? Well, first off, I feel like that
Archaeology.
ology thing doesn't work out. You know, Scientology. I don't know about that one. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know about that science. First off, what was I gonna say? I forgot. Oh yeah. So I think it gets a bad rap too. I think honestly, it's so important because I feel like the whole idea of history is that we're supposed to understand it so that we don't repeat it. But I feel like so often we just judge other cultures and we say things like, oh, Native Americans were primitive or they were savage. Or you say things like that and you look down on kind of other cultures when in reality, you kind of when you actually look into what they've done and what they've accomplished, you realize, wow, that was actually amazing. They actually contributed to so much to modern society. You know, when you're looking at cultures like the Mayans, Aztecs, you're just like, wow, their interpretations of maths and dating was incredible. And so I feel like we kind of get away from our past and we kind of start to repeat our own cycles of human nature, or rather what we think is human nature, because we just are so ignorant to our past. And I feel like what you were talking about earlier about how both of these cultures kind of look down on anthropology, I think that's a big reason why, because we're so ignorant to it. And I feel like that kind of carries over to philosophy because people don't care to look into anthropology. And so they build this kind of distorted philosophy on the basis that, oh, well, people are like this because I think they are, period. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, like you said, it's the way people are thinking. Because right now, when we think science, and we think like successful scientists, we think of physicists, astronomers, people that recently have made huge contributions to our development. And well, yeah, and sadly, anthropology has made a contribution to those types of successes, but just gets ignored.
Mm.
I mean, I know Tim Sullivan, former advisor for the anthropology program. Like, he was a strong advocate to have a strong program here at Richland. I mean, right to the very end, before his retirement, I mean, he still wanted to keep a strong presence. So that's why the basis of this show is to continue Mr. Sullivan's legacy. And well, if you're listening to this, Sullivan, we truly do miss you. And hopefully we can bring you to the show and with Nancy, because I think it would be interesting to see both people, both of you, debating.
They have like such different personas. It's hilarious.
Yeah. For those who missed the last semester's collaboration between the Anthropology and Philosophy, things got interesting, especially when Nancy and then Sullivan spoke out. I think you did learn a lot.
Yeah. Both of them are so brilliant. It was awesome to have them there, honestly. Yeah. So here's another question for you guys. Do you guys feel like, I guess in terms of, let's talk about philosophy or morals, do you think that should be solely built upon sciences like anthropology?
No.
Okay. I'm going to ask you. Why?
First, restate your question.
You're like, I wasn't paying attention. I just wanted to say no. Fair enough. Do you think morality should be built upon sciences like anthropology?
Well, I said restate your question. Like, say it in a different way.
Say it in English.
Yeah.
Speak American.
Speak Esther.
Esther. I don't know how to speak that.
You need a knife. You need to have a crazy look in your eyes,
jeez.
and you need to laugh like a maniac.
Oh no, y'all should hear my evil laugh. It's great. I love it.
How am I stuck with you?
Oh man, I'm
I
watching.
pray for Edward Cisse.
What's going on, guys? Anyways,
A story for another time.
Back-
Continue. Restate your question.
back. Should we base like our ideas of good and bad on anthropology or like the study of science?
So basically, try to define and judge what is good or bad, depending on how.
So let's say someone's like, oh, you know what? In reality, there's no meaning in the world, so I'm going to go out and kill a bunch of people. And that's their philosophy. Do you think that there should be kind of a basis off of that, like off of anthropology?
Should there?
I
would
feel like this is a loaded question.
It's a big
Is it?
question, but for simplifications for my answer, I would say there should be some involvement with anthropology. Not fully, but there has to be some. I guess the rest does have to fill out with whatever ethics, what's morality, and basically whatever kind of basis of thinking.
I think it has to do more so with, well, no, probably equally with history and anthropology, because you have to look at the past people and see what were their morals. We're talking about morals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just double checking. Because human nature, I mean, you can say that it's changed over time, but it hasn't changed that much in the span of 200 years. And we have history of 200 years, at least. I mean, we have history from way back further than that, but I think that we need to take into account the past, that humans have, the past morals that we've held onto. And, I mean, maybe you could try reevaluating them if you feel like that's necessary. But, yeah, I don't think that it should be entirely based on today's society.
Yeah, no, I like what you said there. I completely agree. I feel like it's kind of
Completely.
okay. No, I don't. So it's kind of like the idea of applying science to philosophy. Is that like, okay, well, we see these morals and how they kind of turned out in the past, and maybe we should avoid that, or maybe we should avoid this based off these things. You know, certain. It's kind of like how I interpreted what you said. But at the same time, now I kind of want to ask you a question. Do you think there is such thing as human nature?
Yes.
What is that exactly?
Well, okay. For me, I'm a Christian, so mine has a spiritual side to it.
Okay, fair enough.
So I hold the view that human nature is what is the distorted image of what we're actually supposed to be. So you can't say that it's good or evil, really. And this is kind of going into a different topic, but I think that you definitely are more inclined to do some things over others because you are human. I mean, most people are inclined to want to learn at least something that they're passionate about. And I think that that's in human nature. But at the same time, I think that ill morals can come from, you could say, human nature or current human nature, I guess, because it's been distorted. And from a Christian perspective, you know, when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, then they had to, sin entered the world, and it distorted that image of what human nature was supposed to look like. So now currently it's distorted.
So, yeah, I like that you brought that up because I think it's pretty interesting the way theology kind of looks at human nature. And from what I kind of really understand from it is just like this basis of like selfishness. Is that we're kind of, like when you're really looking at the root of things, is that everything that you do, you're kind of only doing it for your benefit. And you could ask, well, is that always the case? And I think there was this really good part in Plato's Republic where he asks the question, well, when you worship a god and you do good things for the basis that you believe in a god, isn't that in it of itself kind of selfish too? Because you're doing it for your benefit that you hope that you will go to heaven?
But if you use that argument, then nothing you do can ever be non-selfish, which begs the question, what is selfish? If everything is selfish, then what is selfish?
Well, in that sense, the selfishness is what I'm saying is that you're doing it for your personal gain. Whether it's, I guess selfish might be the wrong thing that I'm saying. I guess self-preservation is the word I'm looking for here. Is that at the end of the day, every decision that you make is something that you expect that will come back to you in some good way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And so is that ultimately the nature of humans, you think? Do you think that they only ever care about themselves in that way?
I can't answer.
I'm gonna jump in, and on my own personal opinion, I think. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay, bro.
I think humans are inherently selfish, because that's how we've evolved in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
If we aren't selfish, then how are we going to try to improve ourselves, become the best of what we can be? How are we going to leave our mark in history, which has led to some of the biggest discoveries and inventions that have forwarded our society into what it is, the digital age, the nuclear age?
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying there, because I think that's, in philosophy, that's referred to as the anthropological sense, where it's like, what you're doing is you're kind of, what was the word I was looking for here? Okay, like through evolution, because in evolution, if you're thinking about natural selection, it's like, it's instinctively like the best way for you to reproduce and for you to live and to go on and to move forward. This idea of progress almost. And it's kind of like, in thinking of self-preservation, you're doing that because you're doing what's best for you. And once you do that, once you take that further, once you start to think, okay, what's best for me, then you start to think, oh, what's best for my society? Because then you start to say, well, what's best for my society is what's best for me at some point, shape, or form. But going further from that, I kind of want to think, well, what was it? I forgot what I was going to say, actually. But I think I have a problem with the idea to think that we're inherently selfish. Because then you kind of start to look at situations and like, okay, well, what about soldiers who risk their life for their country and for their people? Or what about prisoners who, when they're being jailed and they're told, oh, if you go snitch on your friend, you'll be let out, and they decide not to? What about in those instances? How are they selfish in that instance? Or how are they thinking only of themselves if they are doing something for others?
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I mean, like I said, what I said, it was my own personal opinion, and obviously, if we were going to dissect selfishness, I mean, we guys do have to contribute those kinds of factors. But I would not say, in general, I think, in general, for the most part, not always, I think humans are selfish. Now, there's going to be times that people will actually look beyond their own well-being. I mean, we are also capable of that. But for that, I think there has to be like a specific cause or reason.
Morals.
Yeah, moral to do that because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not every day that you're probably going to lay your life, put your life on the line
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for something you did not believe.
And oh man, that's beautiful.
Okay, so actually, my sister is listening to this right now, and she had something to add.
Awesome.
That humans are selfish, but we can perform selfless acts
Ooh.
or try to fight against our nature.
Okay, I like that. I like that you guys both brought that up, or your sister brought it up. Thanks for bringing it up, by the way. Esther's sister,
Her name's
Danielle.
Danielle,
Because in philosophy, the way they describe morality is the idea that human nature will go bad, or it's kind of a liability that it will go bad, that things will go bad. It's like, how do you act with others in case things go wrong? That's kind of how they look at morality. It's just basically knowing that things will go wrong. And so I think that's very similar to how Christianity looks at it, is to say that, well, when you are following a God, you are going against your nature, because essentially your nature is sinful. And so I think that's very interesting, because when you're talking about morals, you look in different religions, you look at different philosophies, even in the ideas of kind of anthropology, you kind of see the same idea, and it's that you should have morals, you should have structure that kind of goes against your base level understanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to make a quick announcement to do some timing reasons. I gotta have to leave early.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, yeah, fortunately, this is gonna be probably the first time I'm gonna have to leave early. But before I go, I'll just say, Orlando, sorry. Thanks for coming by, putting your time to come to our little show, our award-winning show, as I like to call it.
Okay.
And yes, I'll try to be for your philosophy club. So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
No,
so
I
for the time being.
appreciate this exchange. Honestly, this was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Anthropology Show, and everything said is the explicit view of
Esther Land.
of Orlando Silva and Jack Ramiro Bernal.
Ramiro. Yes.
Ramirez Bernal, something like that. I don't know. Anyway.
Spoken like a true me.
So yes, thank you so much for joining us. We will be trying to get on at 4:15, at least by 4:15, in the following weeks. Today we got on a little bit early, but yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and before we go, just a quick thing. Thank you for those who did show up to the event today for creating your own language. Stay tuned. We'll be once more at 4 or at 4:15 for the next Anthropology Radio, and we'll give you more news on what's going on with the program. So
And right before that, did you already end it? Okay, right before that, Philosophy Club Radio Hour is tomorrow, 3 to 4. It's gonna be much better than this one, because we're actually award-winning. Philosophy Club meeting from 3:30 to 4:30 every Tuesday.
All right.
Think about it.
Ezra shut you down.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
This is the Self-Preservation Society. The Self-Preservation Society. The Self-Preservation